We usually think of history in terms of clear wins and losses. But what if a nation's greatest victory was the very thing that caused its greatest defeat? Well, that's exactly what happened when Britain won a massive war for North America, and in doing so, accidentally lit the fuse for the American Revolution.
And you know who saw this coming? John Adams, a future American president. He looked back and pointed to this war, a huge win for the British Empire he used to be a loyal part of, as the real starting gun for American independence. It's just this incredible, ironic twist of fate that a shared victory would end up tearing an empire apart.
So that's the big question, right? The puzzle we're going to unpack today. How could a victory so total, one that literally redrew the map of a continent, lead directly to the empire losing its crown jewels? The answer? Well, it changes everything about how we see the birth of the United States.
All right, to get to the bottom of this, we need to rewind the clock to the mid-1700s. North America was the grand prize in a global showdown between two superpowers, Great Britain and France. And their fight for this continent would set the whole chain of events in motion.
See, their goals were on a total collision course. Britain wanted land. It needed room for its colonies to grow, to farm, to build new towns. France, on the other hand, was all about controlling the vast interior for the super-lucrative fur trade. These two dreams for North America just couldn't exist on the same map.
And make no mistake, this wasn't just some far-off war between European armies. The American colonists were right in the thick of it. At the time, they saw themselves as proud British subjects, fighting shoulder to shoulder with the Redcoats to protect their homes and their empire from that common enemy. And get this quote comes from a young colonial officer you might have heard of, George Washington. Yeah, that George Washington. He was there when the first shots were fired. For him, and for thousands of other colonists, this war felt personal. This was their fight too.
So after years and years of brutal fighting, Britain finally gets what it wants. But, and this is a huge but, that victory, it turned out to be a classic double-edged sword. It came with a price tag that absolutely no one, not in London, not in the colonies, could have ever seen coming.
This whole conflict, which over here in America we call the French and Indian War, it just dragged on for nearly a decade. It all wrapped up in 1763 with something called the Treaty of Paris. France basically handed over all its territory, and Britain was declared the undisputed champion. On paper, it was a knockout.
And the prize for winning was staggering. Britain suddenly controlled this enormous chunk of North America, from Canada all the way down to Florida and stretching west to the Mississippi River. With the French out of the picture, the future for the British Empire looked brighter than ever.
But here's that other side of the sword we talked about. Winning a war on a global scale is ridiculously expensive. Britain was now stuck with a crushing, absolutely astronomical debt. And this right here is the turning point. That military victory created a massive financial crisis back in London that would change absolutely everything.
So that massive pile of debt, that was the spark. The shared experience of war that had brought Britain and its colonies closer together was about to be totally overshadowed by a new dynamic, one that would crack their relationship wide open and turn former allies into bitter enemies. So if you're the British government, you're looking at these massive bills and you're thinking, hey, wait a minute, we fought this war, a really expensive war, to protect the American colonies, right? So it only seems fair that they should chip in and help pay for it. Seemed logical enough.
And this is where everything changes, not just financially, but psychologically. For decades, the French were the big, bad enemy that held the whole empire together. With them gone, the colonists and the British started looking at each other, and for the first time, they really started noticing all the ways they were different. The glue was gone. And into this super tense, new environment comes Benjamin Franklin's famous Join or Die cartoon. Now, he'd originally created it as a call for the colonies to unite against the French, but now it got a whole new life as a symbol of colonial unity against what many were starting to see as a new kind of threat, the policies coming from London.
So you can start to see how the pieces fall into place, right? This wasn't some grand plan. Nobody in London or Boston finished the war and said, hey, let's have a revolution. But the consequences of that great victory set off this unforeseen chain of events that led straight to it.
It was basically a four-step domino effect. Let's walk through it. Step 1. An imperial war unites Britain and the colonies against a common enemy. Step 2. Victory. But it comes with massive territory and even more massive debt. Step 3. To pay that debt, Britain brings in new taxes on the colonies. And Step 4. Resentment over those taxes, without any representation, explodes into a revolution. And really, if you take one thing away from all this, it should be this. The most important outcome of the war wasn't the new borders drawn on a map. It was the change that happened in people's minds. The American colonists went into that war feeling like proud partners in the British Empire. They came out of it feeling like subjects who were being taxed without their say-so. And that single shift, it changed the world.
Which leaves us with one last fascinating question to think about. Once that common enemy was off the board, was a clash between the colony's new sense of identity and Britain's need to pay its bills always going to happen? Was the American Revolution, in the end, simply inevitable?